Ladies and gents, welcome to another episode of the Landlord Page podcast. I'm here with the new host, Andy.
Hello.
How are we doing?
Good. Always good.
Good. So this week, Andy, we've got Lee Curtis coming on the episode. Now, Lee, I've known for many years. He's got a land business that deals with brokerage, dealership, everything from buying and selling land.
I think with land, land is always going to be what someone's prepared to pay for it.
Yeah.
And every developer's circumstances are different in that, if you've got a site for 10 units, for example, and you've got, a medium house builder that's looking to build those out, their overheads are going to be a lot higher, and therefore they're not going to be able to spend as much for the land as, Bob the builder would be able to.
Yeah.
So landowners, you can go on Google and you can search land prices, for example, and the old rule has always been sort of a third. So you've got a third as your land value, a third as your build costs, and a third as your profit.
Okay.
But where the build costs have gone so high, I think probably since COVID, I'd say the build costs have gone up 50-60%. They're so high at the moment. Many years ago, you could build a site out for 150, 160 pound a foot.
Mm-hmm.
You're lucky if you get that under 225 at the moment.
He's a top guy, very, very knowledgeable. It's taken me about 2 years to get him on because he's a little nervous in front of the camera. But what are you most looking forward to asking Lee?
Yeah, it'd be great to speak to Lee. One of the main questions, especially from my background, that I want to ask him is what are developers doing at the moment, and how busy is it sort of in the land registry, land world?
Yeah.
What is it sort of big developers that he's mostly dealing with, or small developers? So I'm interested to get his view on the clients that he's dealing with and transactions going through. How big is the land that he's sort of seeing most of, and sort of gain an understanding of sort of which direction it's going in with. Is it more smaller developers or is it bigger developers that are coming in for this land, really?
Absolutely. And I think from my point of view, I want to really get stuck into what is going on with the land market. I know what's going on with the sales market. You know what's going on with the lettings market. Is the land world in the same level as us, or has it changed? Has it had a bigger impact since the Liz Truss sort of mini budget? Is it buoyant? Is it down? What is it? So we're going to put Lee on the spot. His business is Curtland. He's the business owner of Curtland. He deals with land up and down the country, from small plots to large plots. We'll talk about that on the episode as well. Right. But let's get him in, shall we?
Yeah, definitely. Let's do it.
So Lee, 2.5 years in the making. Welcome to the Landlord Page podcast.
We got here eventually.
We did, yeah. You're a busy man and also not a fan of the camera, as we well know.
Absolutely hate it.
Yeah, so I appreciate you coming on. But we're just going to have a chinwag today. So from your point of view, land. Let's cover a few things. But land, mini budget drama, property market, developers. How is it in general at the moment? It's just overall kind of perspective on the land market from your point of view.
It's it's a strong market. The biggest problem we've got is overpriced sites at the moment, and we've also got, which is probably the biggest issue, is the ever going build costs, or ever rising build costs, shall I say?
On the pricing, sales pricing, like residential sales pricing, has corrected off of the sort of mini budget. And I'd probably say we've seen 10-11% drop since the summer. But for land, is it maybe the owners haven't corrected at the same rate as the market, as it were, do you think?
I think with land, land is always going to be what someone's prepared to pay for it.
Yeah.
And every developer's circumstances are different in that, if you've got a site for 10 units, for example, and you've got a medium house builder that's looking to build those out, their overheads are going to be a lot higher, and therefore they're not going to be able to spend as much for the land as Bob the builder would be able to.
Yeah.
So landowners, you can go on Google and you can search land prices, for example, and the old rule has always been sort of a third. So you've got a third as your land value, a third as your build costs, and a third as your profit.
Okay.
But where the build costs have gone so high, I think probably since COVID, I'd say the build costs have gone up 50-60%. They're so high at the moment. I mean, many years ago, you could build a site out for 150, 160 pound a foot. You're lucky if you get that under 225 at the moment.
Really?
That's
so
how
that
far
third
it's gone up.
on the profit is where the issue sits at the moment.
Yeah.
Then
So you've got at the moment, you've got landowners that would, obviously they want as much as they can get for their land, but they're probably in the region of about sort of 30 to 40%. But once you've taken into of GDV, sorry, but once you've taken in the build costs, in reality, the land value is really coming down to about 20 to 25%, and that's not reaching where the land owners want to be. And therefore, those they just sit on the market. They just can't move.
I think what's interesting for land valuations as well is when you're buying a house or you're renting a house, you'll pay a little bit more to rent it or to buy it if it's the sort of dream home, because the visual is right. I'm going to be there with my family, and you're going to spend the time with your family in there. But when it comes to buying land, you're not buying it for a lifestyle. You're buying it for profit in reality, aren't you?
Exactly.
So it either works or it doesn't. It is quite black or white, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, I sort of deal with sites where I send them out to a number of developers. They'll look at that, and you can sort of do a fag packet valuation. You look at it, what's the gross development value going to be at the end? How much is it going to cost to build it? And how much have I got to pay to buy it? And, just putting those three figures down, you can see straight away whether or not the site's going to work. If you've got, let's say, a site that's got a gross development value of £10 million, and you've got to pay £6 million to buy the site, and it's going to cost you £5.5 million to build it. It just doesn't work. Your typical fag packet valuation, it's obvious that isn't going to work. And you can't go by the normal rules of 30, 30, 30 or a third anymore. So now you have to look at a site on its individual merits. What are the property values? Are the property values likely to sort of decrease or increase? And when you're buying a site, you've got to look at, obviously the property prices, but you've got to almost sort of predict what they're going to be like in a year, 2 years' time. But with everything going on at the moment, with Truss and her antics, should I say, that happened, obviously everything just tanked. Which is difficult, makes it a difficult market.
I guess interest rates on that scale is a totally different scenario for developers, because I'd imagine they're not buying most land plots cash, are they?
Some do, but I think predominantly developers want to use bank funding rather than their own. I think cash is king at the moment, isn't it?
With the developers that you have, I mean, are these developers buying this land obviously to build the properties and then to sell them on, or do you see developers sort of integrating into the build to rent side of things and looking to keep hold of that site and that development and look to go towards the rental side of things, or is it mainly just sales stuff?
That's a good question, because a lot of people, I mean, you've got your typical developers that will buy, build and just sell, because that's what their model is. But your smaller developers are certainly looking more into the rental market.
Yeah, because that's the sort of reason why I asked that, is because, especially from what I've seen over the last 12 months, is that you will get developers that are sort of interested in the rental side of things now and keeping hold of that investment. And then if they get an income from those 10 units that they've built, then that will tide it over, and that will, have some sort of cash value to go and buy another site and then keep hold of these sites, rather than, a few years ago it used to be develop the houses, sell them, move on. But there does seem to be sort of a change that they are keeping hold of the sites and renting them out.
Yeah, I think some developers are looking at maybe sort of keeping maybe 20-25% of a block, using that as rentals, and then maybe raising finance against a block, using that to buy something and fund something else. But it is changing. I mean, your typical sort of developers that your more well-known ones, that they don't get involved in that. Certainly, the PLCs don't get involved in that. Medium house builders, they don't really get involved in that. It's your smaller house builders, that are getting into that, because I think it's a case of wherever you can get an income now, isn't it? And,
Yeah.
and if that's keeping 25% of a block, keep hold of that, get an income from it, and then go and buy something else.
It feels in other countries that whether it's fund investment or pension purpose investment or just like consortium investment, it feels like there's some big powerhouse investors that are doing the build to rent stuff in other countries. I know you've spent the last 12 months dealing directly with a lot of these build to rent developers on big scales, as we were talking about in your podcast. And it feels like maybe that's a UK thing that's about to get hit, especially if we've seen prices corrected by 10, 11, 12%. Then maybe from an investment point of view now is a really great opportunity, but only if the land is correctly priced, and that's where a lot of the issues potentially sit in the UK.
That's exactly where it is. There's a lot of landowners out there that that do want to sell, but I think there's the rise of the I don't know how to sort of say it really, but you've got all these online courses that are coming on, how to buy land and how to do this and how to do that. And sometimes the information that's given isn't correct. Because these people they'll approach landowners, for example, and they'll say, right, you can expect to get this from your land without taking into account the contributions that are required, the build costs that are required, and typically going along the third, and the third. And what happens is all these sort of online agents that come into the forefront, they're pitching prices to landowners that are just too high and unachievable. And it will get to a point that over time the prices will come down and everything will start to stabilize again. But just at the moment, the land values are just way too high. Unless you can get it off market. If you can get it off market, it's 1-to-1. Then you've got a good chance of selling it.
Yeah, and then with the land now, do you see a lot of sort of big players buying up this land rather than your sort of smaller developers? So if you look at the
land banking,
so, I mean, if you look at the big players, I mean, there's news articles every single day locally that so and so bought this land, they're going to build X amount of properties on it. So there seems to be all of the news that you hear is about these big players doing it, and really the smaller developers are getting sort of pushed away because the bigger players can just buy this land, don't mind paying a bit more money for it. And like I said, the smaller developers aren't really getting a chance to get stuck in and buy a decent sized bit of land to build 10, 20, 30 properties on it. So do you see that with the clients that you sort of deal with, or you getting your smaller developers introduced to land, they're buying it, etc.?
I mean, there is cases of developers that are going out and buying big parcels of land, but they buy it early to get it cheap, so that they've got the time to muck around in planning, because planning takes such a long time. I mean, and that takes,
on average, how long's planning taken at the
most local authorities will sort of say anywhere from 12 to 15 weeks.
Right.
But in reality, you're lucky if you're 12 to 15 months at the moment. It's just taking so long. And that's been like that ever since COVID. It's almost like all of the local authorities are all working from home now. Our local authority, you try to speak to them, there's nobody there. You get an auto response, our virtual office is closed, and it's like, well, where are you then? You're not in your office, you're not doing anything on the planning, and everything's just taking so long. But sorry, I forgot what the question was.
That's a frustration though, isn't it, from a planning point of view? Because you want to get some traction, and even in house selling or anything, whether it's a new home residential or a let, momentum is key for the buyer. They want to feel the excitement of getting the offer agreed is amazing. Then you want to get to the next part, which is making it official. And if there's too long in the middle, the chances of it not happening are heightened. And those sort of issues, I guess
because I suppose if you've got your smaller developers, they'll buy land, they'll need that process as quickly as possible in order to get the cash to buy the next site. But the bigger developers, like you said, can just hold on.
Yeah, they've got scalability on their side, haven't they?
They don't need to release the cash, and they'll just keep hold of it. I've seen bits of land from 3 years ago that have been bought, and still nothing's been done on it.
Yeah.
So they've got that. They're in that position to just keep hold of it. But like I said, your smaller developers obviously need that quick turnaround time. So if the planning permission's not been done for 12, 15 months, what are they going to do?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you see a bit of land that's been bought 3-4 years ago, without looking on the planning portal. It's difficult to know what's happening. So Joe Public will drive past a piece of land and go, "Oh, that's been sat there for like nearly 5 years. What's happening?" What they don't know is, maybe that land's got some kind of listing on it. Is there some kind of heritage on there? Has it been in planning for 3 years? Has it been refused?
Special frogs and things like that.
Yeah, newts and all sorts of things like that. Yeah, exactly that. And they've got to go through that period of getting everything off the site, and clean the site. It might be contaminated, and you've just got to go through that process. But in order to start construction, you've got to go through the planning process.
Yeah.
To get through the planning process, I mean, you're 12 to 15 months. As soon as you bought the land, and then you've got 15 months. You then get planning. You've then got to go via the architects. You've then got to get technical drawings.
Yes.
And you've got to get those all approved. Then you've got to get all your conditions all discharged.
It's just crazy, isn't it? It's
crazy. If you've got 30, 40 conditions on there, or 20, 30 conditions on there, it can take up to 6 weeks just to get rid of one of them. Yeah.
It sounds to me like the land process is as archaic as the conveyancing process in terms of all of these things that take so long.
Yeah.
What is the future? What would you like the future of it to be? Because it should be more simple. That's a title, that's a buyer. They've got a plan on what they want to do. They're happy to pay that price.
Yeah, done and dusted.
Get it done.
Yeah.
But it's never that simple, is it?
It's never that simple. It's the planning process that's the difficulty at the moment. I think you can find sites easy enough, but it's just getting it through that planning process. So I guess to answer your question, in an ideal world, what would we like to do? What would we like to see? I guess probably what we'd like to see is what happened in the 70s is, you find a bit of land, you draw a red line around it, you take it to the local authority and say, "Can I build on that, please?" And they say, "Yeah, that's fine."
Yeah.
And then you go away and you build on it. That's in an ideal world, but that isn't going to happen.
But that's what the local authority want. They want more building. They, you mentioned on your podcast about the constraints that the councils have got for their objectives to actually get more properties built in their area. And everyone wants it. The seller wants to sell. The buyer wants to buy and build and create and make profit. The people want to buy the homes. Maybe a couple of neighbours on local farms have got issues with sites going up, but that's just reality. Move further away from the town. That's the way you've got to do it if you want that lifestyle. But everyone wants it, but it just can't happen that fast. It just seems mental, doesn't it?
And you've got the country sort of screaming out for more properties, and they've just got to fix that planning process.
Well, this is what I said in the other podcast, is that councils have a quota that they've got to hit. So that could be 10,000 homes in the next 5 years. So they need people to build homes. That's already set. They're probably getting funding, and they've got to hit that in order to get that funding. So if they sped up the process of planning applications, then everyone's happy, aren't they? The housing demands are being met. Councils are hitting their quotas, but it's just that middle part that is just it's just crazy. It just holds everything up. It will put developers off. These smaller developers, it'll put them off because they know that they need to wait 12, 15 months or whatever for planning permission. They end up going elsewhere. So if they fix that middle bit, I mean, the whole journey would be a lot better. Get more property built, which is what everyone wants, which is what everyone needs. So fix it, and
you get
everything's
more to
good.
sell, you get more to rent.
Everyone's happy.
Everyone's happy.
You've got a business.
Exactly. And the trouble is how do you fix the local authorities? 9 out of 10 local authorities are all short-staffed. They've got maybe 2 planners that are trying to deal with a whole borough. Of applications, and it's not just applications that are for 10 apartments or 12 houses. These are applications to prune a tree. or to move a shed and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
they just get bogged down. If there's only 2 or 3 of them in the office, you
They
can
gotta go.
see
It's
why
gonna
it takes
back
so
up,
long.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy. So,
Mm.
Lee, talk to me about Curtland. Let's sort of explain for the people listening and watching, how does your role, your business work in all the middle of all of this? So talk us through that, because you've been in land now for over a decade. So
Yeah.
how's it evolved from your point of view, or hasn't it? And how are you involved in the land process for the people that may want to contact you after the episode?
So Curtland Developments, we are the middleman ultimately between landowner and developer.
So you open the doors.
Yeah, exactly that. So I guess sort of most of my days, if you like, is finding sites, sort of trawling through software that we've got, writing to landowners, are you interested in selling your land? And obviously going to see those landowners and discussing what we can do, how we can market the site for them. Once we've got all of the information, we then sort of pitch that to a number of developers. Developers say, yes, we're happy to proceed, or we want to meet on site, we want to meet the owners, and ultimately put a deal together. So what we do is we introduce the landowner and the buyers together, and any service they require in the middle, solicitors, planners, architects, surveyors, anything, we'll organise everything in the middle of that as well. So we're trying to be a sort of one-stop shop where a landowner can sit there and say, right, I wonder what we can do with our land. We'd like them to obviously give us a call, say come around and have a look, and then obviously we go from there. But I think a lot of sort of land brokers and agents, they're very pressurized and very sort of you've got to come on the market now, you've got to do this. But I think with land, it's because it takes so long, it's not something that you want to meet a landowner and put it on the market the next day. You want to meet the landowner, discuss the land, research the land, what can we actually do with the land, rather than just throw it on the market with no information at all.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to give a service to landowners that they feel that they're getting the best value for their land.
Because with the limited sort of experience I've got in land, but sort of 20 years in property, there's little things that I've learned and picked up on. For example, I've had buyers say, right, I want to look at that bungalow because I want to go up a level and turn it from a 2-bed bungalow into a 4-bed detached house. And you can easily kind of look at the 3 houses to the left, the 3 to the right, and go, well, they're all bungalows, so that's not getting approved.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you might be able to look at one of the pubs from the smoking ban fallout, which have probably still got concrete blocks around them that nothing's happened to them. And someone might turn around and say, well, I want to turn that into a monster block of apartments. And you might look at it and go, well, there just clearly isn't the parking for that to be an option. So I've sort of got a little bit of understanding. But for you, in the buyers that you're talking to, the new buyers rather than the big boys, what's the qualification that you can quickly help them with when they're looking at these sort of massive ideas and plans of grandeur that they've got to actually start buying land and turn it into development? What would be the quick wins and advice you would give them
as a developer?
As a new developer, as someone that maybe they're a builder, they've done a 1-for-1 or something like that, and they're now looking to go to that next level and buy a pub as an example and try and turn that into a block of 12. What little qualifying advice would you give for them?
Find yourself a good agent, i.e. like
Do you know
me.
one?
Yeah, Find yourself a good agent and have a good power team behind you. Architects are massively important.
Yeah.
Planners, massively important. And if you get an architect and planner in the same office, absolutely ideal.
As in they work together
Work
almost.
together,
Yeah, okay.
So the trouble is you can see a derelict pub, for example, and go, that'd be amazing. I'll put 60 apartments on there. An architect will look at you and go, it's not going to fit. Under any circumstances, that's not going to fit. But what we can do is we can probably put 20 on there or 25 on there, subject to planning, and then do it that way. The planner will go through all of the planning laws, and the architect will go through the drawings and make sure it fits and gets the parking in and moves everything around. So it'd be get a good agent and get a good power team.
Yeah, we've mentioned on this podcast for the years that we've been doing it now, coming up for 2 years, the power team in any context is just so important that you've got that tried and trusted group of people that you can just ask that question on. You know, it's so important. And I guess, the architect really has a huge impact in that, and the planner.
Yeah.
Is there a lot of them that work in unison? Is there a lot of those kind of yin and yang combos out there?
There's a few out there.
Yeah.
I'd say sort of architects typically they're sort of separate, but a lot of planners work with a lot of architects, and a lot of architects work with planners, not necessarily in the same office, but there's a lot of architects will know a lot of planners, and in specific areas that are looking, because I think that's key. So if you're looking in Croydon, for example, you're not going to want a planner that's based in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
No, so you want a local.
You could, because they will know the planning laws eventually.
Yeah.
But they've got to look up those planning laws. Whereas obviously somebody based in Croydon,
someone local,
will know it inside out and back.
Yeah, someone that knows the area,
or someone somewhere.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the contacts, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can pick up the phone or drop a WhatsApp to someone and say, "Can you have a look at that for me?"
Yeah.
But those little golden nuggets are just vital in this game.
Yeah. I mean, I have, I drive past sites, and I sort of park up, and I'll sit there and I'll phone an architect and I'll say, look, what do you think about this site? Here's the address. They'll go on Google and they'll say, well, nice site, looks quite good. Probably looking maybe 10, 12 apartments on thereabouts. But if you've got an architect like that if you are a developer and you've got an architect like that you could literally just phone up or send a message to, here's an address, can you just take a quick look and just let me know? The most of your job is just done right there and then. Then the hardest thing is just buying the land, and what the expectations the landowner wants, and that's the hardest thing. So yeah.
Well, you know what I'm looking for. We had that conversation.
We have.
Yep. So, and I'm sure there's people out there that are also got desires that they're looking for certain things. So definitely have a chat with Lee, because you deal with any parcels of land or conversions or, sort of commercial to resi. You pretty much kind of deal with anything.
I don't sort of typically deal in commercial. I've got commercial contacts, which if somebody's looking to buy a commercial building or something like that, that's fine. I can pass them over to those contacts. I think there's a lot of good commercial contacts out there, and for me to sort of move into that and try and do resi at the same time, I just think it just creates a lot of work for me, that I think there's better people out there on the commercial side that are better than me that can deal with that, and I'd rather put those people in touch with those guys that will give them the full service, rather than me trying to wing it and ad hoc a deal together.
That's good point. It's nice to know, because I think it is specifics and specialisms in this sort of part of the property game is really important.
Definitely.
I'm going to work on you for the next 2 years to try and get you back on for round 2. But what do you think is going to what do you think is going to happen with just the property market in general? From being in property, from being a former agent, you're now involved in this. What's your kind of take on 2023's property market? What do you expect to happen, or are you not really kind of fussed? You're just going to go as it goes. Some people are just like, well, whatever. But what's your thoughts?
It's a difficult question, isn't it, really? Nobody's got a crystal ball. A lot of developers that I'm speaking to at the moment are hinting that there's potentially a dip coming, maybe sort of 4 or 5% dip coming. But then there's others that are massively positive, and it is what it is, sort of thing. At the end of the day, when I'm pricing up land, I can only price the land up based on today's values. I can't price it up based on a year or 15 months down the line. Nor can you price a property at that sort of level. So I think property always comes in peaks and troughs. It always goes up, it always goes down, always goes up and down. And I think we're potentially on a down at the moment. It will dip up a couple of pips possibly, and then it will start to level out. And I think that's the key thing, is just leveling out.
So buyers are being negative before they offer. Sellers are being positive before they go to market. The old classic. I mean, what we're seeing firsthand on the residential sales side of things is it was a little bit torrid after the Liz Truss scenario, and that was a definite. Obviously, interest rates have gone up, but they've come down. I think most people were expecting in November that we'd be sat here in March with interest rates potentially as high as 7%.
Sure.
It's not. They're 3%. They're 4%. So we're in a better place. Halifax Index report reported that February prices actually went up by 1.1% for the first time in 6 months.
Yeah.
So, that's some stability that I think is there.
Mm.
So I do think that potentially this year we're here for level playing field. I don't see there's going to be a climb. I don't see there's going to be a significant drop. Maybe month by month we see a 0.5% up or down throughout the year as peaks and troughs happen. But I think we're there or thereabouts now for a bit of stability and just see that potentially happen for the next 18 months.
Yeah.
But we never know what's around the corner, do we?
No.
We don't know what they're doing in the Houses of Parliament or wherever they're making these key decisions. So
and of course everything that's going on in Ukraine and Russia, that's not helping everything.
It's helping a lot with general material costs and things like that, I would imagine, for the developers.
No, it's making it worse. It's hard to get
sorry,
hold of
not helping. It's impacting rather than helping.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly that. So, I guess it's how is that going to pan out?
Yeah.
Are we going to be here in a year?
That is a question for another podcast.
Always going everywhere.
Another podcast.
Not on a Friday.
No.
But no, I mean, who knows what's around the corner. So, and that's why I think, on that note, it's important to just carry on with your goals and aspirations. Whether you're looking to buy your family dream home because you've sold your business and you're looking for a 2-bed bungalow with a huge plot in a nice location. You want to build your own dream house. We've all got in property that kind of that big goal to do one day, when we hit kind of our late 50s or whenever it happens, or whether you're someone that's actually now interested and your business has turned into a real cash cow and you're looking to get into property, then either way, have a chat with Lee and he can help you out with what it is that you're looking to do. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Thank you, guys.
So Andy, Lee's left the building. Yes. It's a good chat, actually. And although he said he was going to be nervous, I thought he was pretty confident in the conversation.
He handled it well. I was quite surprised. So,
he did
good
well.
on Lee.
What was your biggest takeaway from the chat with Lee?
I think my biggest takeaway from having a chat with Lee was just how sort of slow the process currently is from getting the land and getting the planning permission for that land. One of the things that he said is that you hear sort of stories going around that it's 12 to 15 weeks for planning permission to be granted. It's not that. It's more like 12 weeks, to 15 months. And one of the things that we were talking about was that sort of taking away developers from actually wanting to get involved with that land. If that's how long the process takes, the smaller developers, that's not going to help them, because with smaller developers, they'll probably need to get action on something quick so they can build and sell or rent so they can move on to the next project. Obviously, with the bigger developers, probably doesn't have much of an issue for them. But it's definitely a fix that's needed, is the in-between time on the planning permission. I think if that's sped up, it will help everything. It will create more housing. That's something that it needs to be sorted. So it was good to get his view on that and learn about that, because to hear 12 to 15 months, I didn't think that before. So it's great to get his perspective on it and hear that.
It is archaic, that setup, and it's a shame really, because everyone wants it to get to the spade in the ground, but they just don't seem to be able to do it. And I actually quite like the simplicity of the measure. A third.
Yeah.
I thought that was great.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, right, the land should cost a third, the build should cost a third, and the profit should be a third.
Yeah.
That's quite a nice kind of simple measure for anyone listening that could probably put on it to give themselves a rough idea on what something's worth. So that was really good. It's great having Lee on. And if people want to get in contact with Lee from Curtland, we'll put all of the contact details in the show notes, his website, his email address as well, potentially. And until 2 years' time when we get him on again.
Yeah.
Andy, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
We'll be back next Friday. I'm flicking through YouTube and through Spotify. I don't think there's a podcast or a video channel on YouTube that landlords can land on where they're not being sold something.
I mean, it'd be the first time any estate agents ever asked that question, but why not ask that question to a wider audience?
Estate agents have the knowledge there, but they don't seem to share it.
You can do different episodes based around someone that wants an exit plan or someone that's just starting their portfolio.
The rules change every year.
Yeah.
But why not just open the floor out and just say, well, Is property even the best investment out there?
And tax advice is a big thing, especially with everything that's changed, capital gains tax, and obviously your stamp duty costs that you need to pay and whatnot. People don't realise what they need to prepare for.
We build a podcast and we build a YouTube channel, somewhere that landlords can go and they feel they're not being sold to, but they're just getting quality advice.